want to envy.
With the end of Season 3 for Guilty Gear Strive and the arrival of Slayer, everyone and their mother is talking about who's next for Guilty Gear Strive. To me, this seems pretty obvious. Every character in Season 3 was a fan favorite character, all of whom also featured on the top 5 of every region's character poll. A.B.A, Elfelt, Johnny, and Slayer were all on the tops of the charts. If this trend continues, the likely fighters for Season 4 would likely be Jam, who, spoilers, already had a folder to be a fighter in the game. Dizzy, who is a prominent wanted character and very important to a bunch of characters. Robokai, who has a very vocal fan base. And Venom, a character from Xrd, who was directly referenced in some dialogue between Slayer and Zato. The problem with this discussion is there's no discussion, no intrigue, nothing. But there's also another option that appeared in the character polls that allowed for much more conversation. This option being a guest character.
Nope, stop talking, go to jail.
Oh!
This option is shown to be higher up than most other options on average, with the only region not having it at all being Japan. Fighter games are also known for their guest characters. Tekken and Akuma, the recent announcement of Terry and Mai being DLC for Street Fighter 6, some of the more crazier ones like Arbor and Killer Instinct, and even 2B being Grand Blue, another Arc System Works led game. And while some may disagree, I could see many characters getting to Guilty Gear and being able to fit into the game. Today, I will discuss a good handful of characters and their likelihoods of joining Guilty Gear if there was ever to be a guest spot added, which, to be honest, is like 20%. Now, this is all in good fun and just my opinion. Please feel free to discuss your thoughts in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with anything I say. Now, without further ado, to start out with, the most obvious characters to cross over with Guilty Gear would be other fighting game characters. And obviously, when you think of fighting game characters, you think of Street Fighter, the granddaddy of all modern fighting games. The problem with Street Fighter crossing over with Guilty Gear is, in comparison to its contemporaries, Street Fighter is much more of a grounded, slow-paced game, especially compared to Guilty Gear. Though, it is not like characters such as Chun-Li have been in games with much more fast paces, such as the Marvel vs. Capcom series. So them possibly being brought into Guilty Gear with the moveset change to fit the higher intensity of the game could work. Though, to spice up the character gameplay, I could see them either giving them a unique mechanic from the Street Fighter series, or something Street Fighter popularized. Now, while I am much more of a fan of the Alpha series and their custom combo feature, when I think of Street Fighter mechanics, I think of one moment. If they were to put a Street Fighter character into Guilty Gear, I would believe that they would have a special parry mechanic much like Third Strike, adding another defensive option to the game that many have been wanting for a while. If they were to do this, it would add a variety of character interactions and, of course, be able to lead to high-intensity gameplay moments for those who are good enough to use the parry mechanic. Now, to bring up the actual characters, Street Fighter is a large variety of characters, so the choice would be endless. Someone from the big three of Street Fighter, like Ryu, Ken, or Chun-Li, could work. There are also characters with much more out there designs, such as Gil, whose godly power could easily slide into the world of Guilty Gear. Could also pull in some more grapplers to give Potemkin a true rival, such as Zangief, an obvious choice, or Alex and Hugo, which would be a much more interesting choice in my opinion. One Street Fighter character above all I could see crossing over into Guilty Gear could be Akuma, someone who already has a much more fast-paced gameplay loop compared to their other Street Fighter characters in the roster, who also already crossed into the world of Tekken. He even has more air game than others in Street Fighter. Other Capcom characters who would be interesting to see come into Guilty Gear would be characters like Dante from the Devil May Cry series. With a wide variety of weapons and an already made moveset in the Capcom Vs series, he could fit right in there with some characters like Soul and Kai. Heck, he even has his own install. There's also Mega Man X, since recently Capcom put out a character poll seeing who is the most popular characters and who are the most popular franchises. In the most popular character poll, Mega Man X was the third one up, behind Dante and Leon, and with X, I could see him being put into Guilty Gear, a world full of biomechanical war machines. similar to what he is, but with the difference being that he has a conscience and wrestles with his very existence every day, much like our hero Mr. Bad Guy over here. Stepping away from Capcom, we can look at previous work-based relationships Arc System Works has had with other companies to see who could they pull from. Since Arc System Works has worked on games like Dragon Ball FighterZ, I could imagine that they are on good terms with Bandai Namco. So if Arc System Works wanting a guest character, I can see them going to Bandai Namco first to see what characters they can put into Guilty Gear. If this were to be true, I could see Jin Kazama being brought into Guilty Gear. With his demon gene, I could see him easily fitting in with the demonic characters such as Dragon Soul or Nagariyuki. The only problem I could see with this would be trying to adapt the grounded 3D combat of Tekken to the 2D hyperactive combat of Guilty Gear without taking away any of the identity from Jin. Outside fighting game companies, I could see characters from Sega coming in as guest characters for Guilty Gear. Characters like Axel Stone or Blaze Fielding could work, especially if Sega wanted to promote their revival of other series, such as Golden Axe and Jet Set Radio. Another beat-em-up character I could see joining the roster would be Jimmy Lee from Double Dragon. Did you know Arc System Works has the rights to the Double Dragon series now? Jimmy has a similar reason as to why I think the Streets of Rage characters would make sense, but with a bonus that he could have alternate costumes for his brother, Billy Lee, the Player 2 character of Double Dragons. We can also look at other guest characters from other fighting games to get some ideas, such as 2B. 2B and her whole shtick of fighting robots would make a lot of sense in Guilty Gear, and her playstyle could totally be adapted directly into a 2D fighting game. The only problem with this is that she's already in an Arc System Works game. It hasn't even been a year since she's been announced for that game, making 2B much less desirable as a guest character since you can play her in another game currently made by the same company. A character that gets started in an older fighting game, however, would be much cooler. Maybe someone like Link, because while his rustic fantasy stylings would make more sense in Grand Blue, it could be the exact thing Guilty Gear could be looking for. To juxtapose the futuristic look of Guilty Gear with the classic fantasy look of Link. The biggest problem here is Nintendo. It was only a few years ago that they didn't let Samus show up in Fortnite because it could show up on other consoles. So the likelihood of a more popular Nintendo character getting into a game that's not even on a Nintendo console is 0 to none. Though, if I were to be honest, I wouldn't really want Link to be the Nintendo character to get a crossover with Guilty Gear. I'd much rather have Captain Falcon, who has his own style and panache that could fit much better into Strive. Imagine him having a super that's just
Falcon Punch!
Another character that was inspired by similar concepts as Guilty Gear and holds a similar prestige today as he did back then is Doom Guy or the Doom Slayer, another rock and roll / metal inspired series about fighting off monsters or demons. It could even make sense in lore too, since in Eternal it was established that every skin variation of monster and every WAD pack from the original Doom series is canon since the Slayer has become a multi-dimensional hopping marine at this point. So him showing up in Guilty Gear could be easily explained by him hopping dimensions during the events of 2016 and Doom Eternal. But there is one character that, out of all others, not only could, but should be in this game. When the state of Guilty Gear was in turmoil and their future was uncertain, there was one series that took its place, and with that previous series being all but confirmed to be over, there's no point in keeping him away from Guilty Gear. This character being...
You should have seen this coming, dumbass.
the substitute for Soul in Blaze Blue, a fan favorite character for those who played the games. His story sadly led him to his tragic demise, with not even Rachel, someone who loved Rogda more than anything, forgetting his existence. But what if he never died? Much like Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue has a couple of reality warping forces, so possibly Rogda could have been whisked away to a different dimension that is similar yet different to his own, landing him in Guilty Gear. His moveset can be very similar to how it is in Blaze Blue, but the only difference being how he uses his dust. I'm not the biggest Blaze Blue fan, but I do know that they do not have the same style of dusk button as Guilty Gear does, so that would have to change. I've only given a few of the infinite amount of options that you could possibly see in Guilty Gear. And while everyone may not want a guest character, no one can deny how interesting it could be to see how they would be adapted into the Guilty Gear formula. Again, this is all for fun, so your opinions may differ from mine. But all I want to say is, thank you for watching. Goodbye.
I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride.
I don't believe there was tool and ground farming.
Take you for a ride.